Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Nina back with another TOVA Health TV, TOVA Tuesday episode, where we highlight exceptional and talented people in our local community that are serving in many capacities to try to improve the health, well-being of our community. I am a primary specialty care provider, expertise in sickle cell, but I'm also a holistic health provider and a strong advocate for education. And I am so excited that I have a guest that is just a phenomenal person, and just so happy that he accepted to come on the show today. I have Mr. Khayree Bey, who his resume is just, we could be here for days just reading it, but he is a middle school teacher at McCullough Middle School. But he has so many different areas of expertise. And I consider him like a holistic health practitioner because he is trying to heal our students and provide education in a very culturally appropriate manner, but also to really make sure that the children's emotional health as well as their physical health and their educational needs are met. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Mr. Bey. How are you today? And welcome to TOVA Health TV.
I am doing excellent, and thank you so much. I am honored and privileged to have an opportunity to speak on your show tonight. So I look forward to the dialogue.
Thank you so much. So I just want to say that I'm going to, share a little bit about your background to our viewing audience. But when I'm putting up the slide, I just want to know, because my father was a teacher. He taught at Howard High School. He was a special ed teacher for many years before DSEA. But I always kind of wanted to know, like, what makes you just want to go into serving students and becoming a teacher? What was your calling? It has to be a passion for you.
Without a doubt. No, I wouldn't say as a young man I was looking to be a teacher. Probably at that time I was probably a little too cool for school. But I met my wife while I was in the military. I was in the Marine Corps, and she was playing Division I basketball. And she's been teaching about 25, 26 years now. But she used to let me come in and do the Black History Month lectures and speeches. And one of the kids came back years later and was like, one of my social studies teachers said that what you said isn't true, and you don't know anything because you didn't go to college to be a teacher. And I was doing a lot of different work in the community, youth centers and all, and decided to go back. My wife was like, you'd be a great teacher. So I went back, got my bachelor's in behavioral science and psychology, and then ended up getting my master's in education K-6. And I just know as a Black male, there wasn't a lot of us teachers, as with me growing up, male teachers in general. So I knew that there was something that I could offer as a male teacher, and especially as an African male teacher and experiences, because our children representation matters.
Yeah, I would say
about 2014, the population of students in public schools in America in 2014, minority students, the brown and the Black students, are no longer the minority. So we have to really start serving that population, being that they are an underserved population historically.
wow. I thank you, because I didn't have many African American male teachers when I was in school. So I did have Mr. Knotts. He taught me science. He was amazing. He was the best. And I just wish I had more African American male teachers. So I really thank you for, being in this profession, because it's really, it's a joy, I'm sure, and the students appreciate to have you as a teacher in your various capacities. But Mr. Bey, I just want to dive in a little bit more because you just do so many things and you're so involved in so many organizations. And in 2021, you were nominated as Colonial School District Teacher of the Year. Can you see the slide that I put up, which talks about some of all of your accomplishments? I just want to say that you have backgrounds in behavioral sciences, but also in education, but you're able to incorporate a lot of very culturally appropriate tools to help students, like Kemetic Yoga, which I want to talk to you more about, as well as physical education, and also equity-based trauma and poverty-informed educational models. Can you talk about that?
Yes, I think it's like I said, the population of students is that are not really being represented or served is growing. And with that, many students show up with, I like to call, an invisible backpack. And unless you create those relationships with those students, you really don't know what they're coming in that school building with. And as a teacher for the last 12 years, I'd say little there's a lot of my time spent actually teaching, but there's so much more time spent building relationships, being a positive serve and return agent with students that come from backgrounds where they may not be really getting that at home, right? So when you step into that classroom, you have to be trauma informed, you have to be poverty informed, you have to understand that a lot of these students need social emotional teaching and nurturing, because a lot of times those things were considered soft skills. But since COVID, I mean, it's really brought those things to the forefront. So you really get into the mental health of these children as they're coming in. So I kind of wanted to teach them some self-regulation skills, self-care skills, and kind of give them a little bit of basics of brain science so they can understand kind of what fight, flight, and freeze is, kind of understanding what they're, and I'll give an example. There's a doctor that kind of came up with the mindfulness practice there, John Kabat-Zinn. And many doctors have built off of that model. So I kind of teach them the brain model. So this is kind of your spine, this is the downstairs part of your brain, and this is your feeling part of your brain, that middle part. And then you have the upstairs brain, which is your thinking brain, right? The kids are always like, that's your big brain thought. That's right. So I want them to understand that there's a space between your stimulus, triggers, and then what you do. Do you respond or do you react? Reacting is more of your instincts and emotions, and it doesn't always work well with you. And a lot of times kids don't understand that because they never been told it. We tell them to calm down or be easy, but you've never given them those skills or those tools for their toolbox. So how are they going to navigate those emotions, those tough times? And I want them to start to learn to respond and not react. Responding allows you to reflect for a moment, take a couple breaths, get that oxygen going in that body, getting your body reset. And I think it's a skill set that once they're taught it, they can rely on it. It's almost like a superpower. So I think when you put all those things together, and then all of a sudden you're meeting them where they're at, culturally responsive teaching, culturally responsive healthcare, culturally responsive mental health examinations. All those type of things are really going to help in serving these communities and all children, to be quite honest, because if you're meeting them where they're at, you're not just showing up with the cure to something. You're not asking them, well, what do you need?
Yeah.
So it comes down to just really meeting them where they're at, creating those relationships, and being that positive serve and return agent. They serve it to you, you positively serve it back. And not all the time do they serve you a positive.
I'm sure you get a dose of that every day, right?
Another educator over the summer had one of the best lines, and I teach it to other teachers when I'm doing our first year teachers coming in. When a child is deregulated and they say something off to you, a lot of times you need to take a Q-tip, and that Q-tip stands for quit taking it personal. This is a young child who is, their brains aren't fully developed. You're the adult in the situation, and that does not mean big you, big me, little you. It's more about going, I know you're deregulated. Am I going to escalate this, or am I going to give you that off-ramp so that you can regulate yourself, get yourself back together, and bring you back in? It's a thing of restorative justice. You know, like some teachers are looking for that pound of flesh, and slowly they're leaving the profession. And I think we're getting a lot more progressive minds, young minds in there. 51, and I know we don't always, as a full group of our generation, aren't looking too good at the moment. But there are some of us out there that do recognize that there are some things that need to be changed. They were broke at best. So let's go ahead and take what's good out of those things, and also add on to what the research is showing, what the patient is saying, and stop kind of not really taking their truths into account so that you can truly serve them. You know, I think we're moving in that direction. It's moving slowly, but I see education and the medical field also kind of really stepping back and losing a lot of that apathy and willful ignorance, and kind of really being empathetic and trying to really help out and really be serving the communities that they're in.
Well, I thank you for that and all of the work that you're doing. I want to focus a little bit on African Kemetic Yoga because one thing is when you were talking about sort of deregulating and resetting your mind when you're escalated or anxious about a particular issue. I know I was never good test takers. I got so anxious all the time. But I'm also thinking about conflict resolution, ways in which, because kids' brains are mature and sometimes they react instead of thinking about the consequences of their reaction. And I'm thinking as being very mindful and also the principles of Kemetic Yoga, perhaps that also kind of helps them in these situations when you really need to take a step back, kind of reset yourself before you take action or do something that you may regret or have to be suspended or whatever. So, can you talk about Kemetic Yoga?
Yes. Again, the lens that I look through, I see education as also social justice. And I don't think there's any other way to exude that than to be culturally relevant to the populations that you're serving. So I've always been into yoga, been very into African American history, world history in general. Uh, as a young child, always was blown away by the megalithic structures around the world. So Egypt was always something that pops into my head. And then as I studied more, I realized the ancient name of Egypt was Kemet. And from there was in the conscious community, African community, during my years in the military and outside of the military, and really got into Tai Chi, yoga, and mindfulness. Realizing that when I went to Japan, I had a Japanese girlfriend who kind of lived with her aunt lived with her, because in their culture, you don't throw away your elderly when you first move out. And they did Tai Chi in the morning, and I'm like, wow, what is this? So started doing it. Wanted to get certified as a yoga instructor, and you know what? I want to get an African form of it. Came across a excellent instructor. His name is Yasir Rahotep. He's the founder and creator of Kemetic Skills Yoga. He's out of Chicago. I bet you that brother is every bit of 70, 75. And one day when I grow up, I want to be like him. The things that he can do, the health benefits that you can see from his dedication are goals. So I wanted to bring that practice back to my students, and I wanted them to see themselves on there. So I wish I had some pictures here that I could share with you of my room, that the students walk into these rooms, and there's people doing yoga, from athletes to stars to President Obama to baseball players, mixed martial arts, women's soccer, Serena Williams, Latino, every size and gender doing it. So I wanted them to see themselves and then be involved with it and see that there's someone out there that they could replicate. Like you said, it is a form of self-care. So you are breathing deeply. I know we spend a lot of time during the day shallow breathing. And when you shallow breathe, sometimes you can trigger your own sympathetic, parasympathetic nervous systems in different ways, and getting you to really focus in on you and not everything that's going around you, past ruminating thoughts of the past and the future that sometimes we get caught up in. Doing yoga and mindfulness and Tai Chi allow you to bring it back to you and really focus on you. And a lot of times our students don't really understand that concept. They also, I've noticed this over the years, many of them, once they, some of them are a little too cool for school, especially for middle school. I do mindfulness and yoga in all different types of atmospheres. Elementary is kind of easy because it's kind of fun to them. High school kids are starting to get that slight adult mindset where they're going, hey, wait a minute, I do notice I want some things that make me feel good, and this is free and easy. Middle school, they're a little I call it herding kittens. Every day I go in there, and for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, we do restorative circles. So every time they come into my class, first thing they do is we sit in a circle. I have about 20 kids each day, 20 to 25. We sit in the circle. We have a talking piece that we pass around. I give them a couple questions that go along with what the theme is. From there, we might do some type of Tai Chi chair Tai Chi with I have bowls, and they're doing the bowls and kind of get them moving. Then from there, we get into a mindful moment where I do about a 3 to 5 minute meditation with them. From there, As the year goes on and I get them comfortable, I also run a planetarium. So I take them down to the planetarium and we do mindfulness or a mindful body scan under the stars at the planetarium. And then from there, I move them into doing basic Kemetic Yoga, which is one of the moves that I teach them is the Maya Ka, which is a longer sequence movement-based version of the sun salutation. There's also something else that we do, and I add that to the Maya Ka. I'd say over the years, different students, as they've gotten to high school, have been very receptive of. Many of them come back like, "Hey, your little stupid breathing techniques actually work." And I'm like, whatever, however it works. I'm just glad that they've been exposed to it, and it's something that they can add to their toolbox. And then later on, you see some of them actually joining yoga clubs or getting certified themselves. That's what I'm waiting to see what my students do next. And she's really adamant about. This is something that I want to do. I'm glad that you are seeing the benefits of it, because a lot of the brown and black population do not see themselves as in those fields, or not even in those fields, realizing the health benefits of that. And I'm glad to bring it to our community and allow them to reap the benefits.
And I'm going to also say, I don't know for sure, but I would say that probably they're more focused and relaxed and more engaged in learning once they do the exercises. So kind of resets them, because, I'm sure they come in like, woo-hoo, and you're like, okay, let's sit. Let's, do our mindfulness exercise. Let's do our yoga. And I think it's really impressive that you're using these techniques in your classroom instruction. And I'm sure that these students will take all of your tools and tips and use them in their everyday lives once they leave your classrooms. So I can imagine that it makes for a better experience as far as teaching them, once you get them in the routine of doing these exercises as part of their, educational instruction.
I've actually trained for the last, the pandemic kind of threw some of that off, but all our first and second year teachers, I actually run them through a mindfulness training so they can actually implement that into the beginning of their classes. We have a new teacher this year that has now implemented a mindful moment, because kind of like you said, it settles the kids. Allows the teacher to settle also, because if you're deregulated, then the students are going to be deregulated also. So if you're quick to react instead of respond, and a lot of times taking those few moments to take those deep breaths and get back into your sympathetic or your parasympathetic part of your nervous system and kind of get back and activate that vagus nerve so that you can really kind of settle in. It allows you to exude that calmness that the students actually see. I've had many students go, I've rarely seen you flip your lid or really. I'm like, I think it's something that you learn and you build that muscle. And then as you build that muscle, it makes it a lot easier to, once you understand what your triggers are, and you take that Q-tip and stop taking it personal. And if this child is showing up with something way bigger than what your subject is or what the standard is that day, because what you're trying to teach that day isn't that important to a child, that their whole world is whatever's going on in that moment. And when you do not respect that and dismiss it, then that's where you lose them from the giddy up, especially these generations. They are not, times are different. And, I can remember being that teacher who was like, well, this is how I did when I was in this, that, and the third, but that is not being culturally responsive. That is not being trauma informed. That is you being stuck in an old way. And, I'm sure you've been in the medical field for a long time. The way that it was before is not the way that it is today. And,
yeah.
Willing to adapt and really be progressive in your to be a teacher. No, a lot of students, I tell them, I'm like, as much as I said you call me a teacher or we're called teachers, I'm a student first. And every day I'm coming in here trying to learn something new, because if not, you're being left behind. The train's going to go and you're stuck in the station. So always staying a student.
Thank you so much for that. And I'm sure that, like you said, even as a healthcare provider, we have to adapt with the times. You have to be progressive, because things have changed so much, for COVID, during COVID, and even the way in which we care for our patients is much different now. So, and I think it's important that we continue to learn and try to improve the way in which we deliver our care to our patients, and in your case, how we educate our students in innovative ways in which we can engage them. So I agree with you with that. So you know that I take care of individuals with sickle cell and chronic medical conditions, and I am a strong advocate for ensuring that children, especially students with disabilities, and even those in college, really have an opportunity to have a good educational experience. And so part of that, I've actually been to schools when raising my own nieces and nephews. I had to go into the class. I've had to do visits with teachers, went to the school, hey, they knew me by my first name. Here she comes again. And I would admit that I was probably like a helicopter parent, the one that they hate to see me. But I think it's important that parents know that it's okay to be a helicopter parent. And especially if your child is having educational or school issues or struggling academically, that they have to be their child's best advocate. And it's okay. So, Mr. Bey, can we talk about some of these things here that I've shared on my TOVA tips? So I always say you got to invest in your child's education. It's okay to meet with the teacher. It's okay to set up a meeting with the school guidance counselor, although they hated to see me coming. I was there. If your child is struggling, you can request an IEP and a 504B plan. But it's also important that they get a yearly school physical and checkup because there can be some underlying medical issues that they're dealing with. And also, maybe if they can't see the board, they need glasses, that's always an easy fix as well. And also, and I'm sure you know as well, that even teenagers, they need 8 to 10 hours of sleep, to really be at their best during the school day. And I know, getting up earlier if they have to take the bus and they're getting in bed at 9 and they're on their iPhone or iPad, then perhaps too, some of those basic things that we can do as parents to really make sure that they're, prepared for school and can be attentive is important. But you do so much as far as advocating and educating teachers, and your work has, you've been awarded even in 2020, the Lieutenant Governor's Challenge Wellness Leadership Award. But as a parent and a teacher, can you just talk about some of these, tips, for parents who may have a child that is struggling academically and needs help?
Yes, I can definitely give some feedback in this area here, not only being an educator, but also a parent of a child with a disability. My youngest son, I have two sons, one 23, about to graduate from Dell State. And
all right. Yeah, go Hornets.
Right. And my youngest, who's about to graduate from high school this year from Colonial William Penn, and actually heading to Dell State next year.
Great.
A major step for him being that he was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes about a year and a half ago at the end of the school year, after going through a pandemic and about to go back into regular school. So that really hit our family hard that year, about a year and a half ago. So I'd say definitely invest in your child's education even before his diagnosis. He wasn't our most academic child. He was our more outgoing. He was our more athletic child, and a social butterfly.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
Investing in his education, you have to stay on them, and I say that from both lenses as a teacher and a parent. I say honestly that especially in middle school, it's easy to lose them. So make sure that you are really there checking those. Today, everything's digital. Your child's grades and everything you can access. So what you want to see, make sure you contact your district, your school, your principal, guidance counselors, child psychologists, you name it. Make sure that they know your name, like you were saying. Because if you do not, your child can easily fall to the cracks, because there's some students in there that are very high needs and kind of dominate different things. And then you have also, these are strangers sometimes who are coming in who may not know your child that well, just getting to know them that year, maybe only has them for one marking period. So you don't know what the circumstances that your child's walking into. So making sure that you're invested in their education is primary. Second would be the IEPs and the 504s. Make sure that they are actually doing the due diligence about those. Once you have those set, there are laws, there are all types of things that are there to protect you and serve you and make sure that your child is receiving the services that they're supposed to. especially with the classroom sizes and the teacher shortage. Your child, again, make sure that they are that you're their biggest advocate when it comes to those. I say this all the time: meet the teachers. Sometimes the teachers are not always. I don't think it's a skill set that's taught in college or teacher prep.
Mm-hmm.
Communication between the family and community, and also realize that just because your family is one way doesn't mean that your students are living that same life. Be very cautious on expecting it to be mom and dad. Sometimes you're going to be talking to a guardian. That guardian may be a grandparent or an aunt or uncle or an older sibling. So make sure that you are establishing that relationship with whoever that child's trusted adult is in their life. Yearly school physicals, without a doubt. Again, my son is a type 1 diabetic, so we are always going to the endo every 3 months. Making sure everything is going well. Also, remember that a lot of the public schools in Delaware are receiving money, services, where you can contact your nurse and find out that there's a time of year when they are in there doing free eye care. There's days during the year where they are coming in there and they're doing free dental care. There's days when they come in there, they're checking their spines. All those things are available. Make sure that you reach out to your school nurse. Some schools are now having wellness centers. I know in our district in Colonial, New Mars and Christiana Health are the ones that are in our facilities. I think we used to have Healthy Life. What is it? Health Life Center.
Mm-hmm.
One, actually, my son is interning with them now. They used to be part of Colonial. I believe they're still in Christina and maybe Brandywine. So make sure you reach out to those. Your children can go in there and get the COVID shot. Matter of fact, if I'm correct, I believe parents and siblings are also able to go to some of those health and wellness spots like in Colonial. And I know Christina School District is also offering those services. So those are things that are definitely available. Like I said, my son is a type 1 diabetic, so we constantly are in touch with the nurse, also the cafeteria, because he has a specific diet. And with that 504, they must meet those. We're about to send him to college, so now we're going to see how those services go there. I know they have groups that help them get the groove of being away from home and living on their own at college. And and getting those services and knowing that they have people there that are dealing with the same disability, and also that there's services there for them. I'm trying to think of what your last one was. It was.
Oh, let me put my slide back up. Yeah. And also, I just wanted to share that, even when your child goes to college, there's the Center for Disability Services. So their 504 plan, 501(4) plan can follow them as well and be updated.
Yes. That's very reassuring, especially when you're, at different times, parents and families are dealing with these disabilities that, maybe from birth and then maybe later on in our case. So depending on how much information you may have or lack of information, to make sure that you reach out to the different resources that are out there so that you can help, you can best serve and take care of your loved ones, your child. Definitely with the joining of getting involved. So
yes,
for me, again, both my sons actually went to the district that I'm a teacher in. So they really can't get away with anything, and I'm always available to figure out what's going on. And he's a little, since my oldest is about to graduate, my youngest is about to go to Del State. I do a lot of different things at Del State over the years, and will probably be adjuncting professor next year there. So my son's like, man, you follow me. So one spot now you go to college too.
Yeah, don't think you're going to act up down here. I know where you are.
That's right.
Dad.
One of my nephews is already there. He's like, I'm going to come hang out in your class. I'm like, no, you're not. But yeah, definitely stay involved. There's so many resources at the schools these days. Like I said, it's not just teacher and the nurse and the guidance counselor and the principal. Now these days, we are really bringing in the community resources, community grassroots resources at that, and also the community to school outreach. So you're reaching out to the Girls and Boys Club. You're reaching out to the police athletic leagues and getting those students and teachers involved both ways so that these students see them in the community. And also in the same way with that, you are there's so many different ways that you can get involved, because I think it almost is like a voting issue, right? So everybody makes a big deal about voting for a president. But to be quite honest, if you're not voting locally or getting involved locally, you are really not involved.
You make much more difference on the ground.
Yeah. Those guys that come around every 4 years, that's important to an extent. But if you are not, and you don't know you don't know who the superintendent is of your school, you don't know who all the vice principals are, who the HR person at your child's school district. You need to know who's on the school board. You need to know who's on even the union. I mean, you want to know information about, well, what's the teachers getting? You need to be involved so that you can actually really be a informed stakeholder when it comes to your child. And also, once your children leave, both my children are leaving the public school realm and heading to college. But even if I wasn't a teacher, I tell family members and friends, it still matters what goes on in your community when it comes to these kids. And don't forget that anytime you're not there to back the upliftment of these children, it's going to come back to bite you later, because you're still in that community, and that community is growing, and it's growing through the children that are in your community.
Right.
So if you're not invested in them, it's going to come back to bite you later too. So
right.
I think it's something where running for office and serving on the school board and being part of PTA, show up to the school with your expertise. If there's something that you're really involved in or something that you love, bring it to the school, create a club, show up there. These students need these positive serve and turn agents from the community. And also it allows you a window, a view into what's going on in your child's life.
Yeah, I don't think you couldn't have summed it up better. And, your children are graduating, you still need to be involved, because even like referendums that need to be passed because they need more resources, for the school. I mean, even as a community, it's very important that we make our voices known and heard. So voting, even for school board elections, people don't realize that's very important, as a educator and a health educator and a musician. And wanting to make sure that children have opportunities to take music classes and arts. I mean, that's very important in their, getting an overall, a well-rounded educational experience. That matters. And it matters because they're going to be in your community one day. So it's important that as a community, even as your kids' minds are grown, you still have to be involved and try it as best as you can. So I think we could probably talk for hours, and I'm just sure there's so much more that you could share with the community. But I just want to ask you some last minute thoughts. I mean, we're going into 2023. You have so many skill sets. You're trauma informed certified teacher, you're a yoga instructor, you're a wellness educator, you've been 2021 Colonial School District Teacher of the Year. Maybe you're going to be in 2023 the Delaware State Teacher of the Year. I'll push for it. What are some of your goals that you have, and what would you like to learn more of before we close it out?
Well, like I said, I'm always I'm a student first. I'm a definite bookworm, and now that you can get the audio books and all that, I'm eating books left and right. So at the moment, I'm about to start. One of the other subjects that I teach is Teacher Academy. It's a teacher prep program. Public schools are competing with vocational schools and charter schools. So my district offers some of the different things from culinary to, mechanics, carpentry, different things and such. Med Lab, which is like a EMT training course. So they leave with a phlebotomy, EKG,
wow.
CPR. My son actually graduated with all those. He could have been an EMT when he first came out.
Oh, wonderful.
One of the things we also offer is teacher prep programs for students that want to be teachers. And the thought is there's a teacher shortage. So where are you getting these teachers from? Well, they're right in front of you. And many of these marginalized students, that's not something that they hear. And they don't look at education as being something that they would see themselves in or they want to do. So our middle schools kind of mimic what our high schools are offering. And my school is the STEM school, because they take the arts out and they don't say STEAM, which is thing for STEM was actually the arts are the one that kicked that whole thing off. So I think it is a little bit of disrespect. I'm not even an art teacher, but when they don't say STEAM, they only say STEM. With that being said, I'm going to pilot. Well, last year I kind of piloted the teacher prep program for middle school, and for sixth graders this year for my teacher prep, I'm actually going to have them do a almost like their own little ebook, and the ebook is going to be on two individuals because again, I think education and teaching is kind of a form of activism. You think of all the different great people from the Latinx to the African American to the Asian to the women's struggles to the LGBT struggles. A lot of them were educators, and I am very fortunate to live in Littleton P. Mitchell's and Jane Mitchell's home. I bought this a couple of years ago, and
Wow.
Mitchell was the first Black male teacher to teach white and Black students. And Jane Mitchell was the first Black nurse in Delaware to serve white and Black patients. And there's actually a building named after her on Route 13 at the State Hospital. And then we have the Jane Mitchell and Littleton P. Mitchell Museum on Market Street in Delaware. I have a lot of artifacts. I have like his NAACP presidential badge and a lot of things that were left in his house. I have, and I'm in the process of writing a children's book that highlights those two in the medical community and then in the teaching community. And they were both big time advocates for the upliftment of women's rights, also migrant workers, and also different marginalized populations around Delaware and the surrounding states. So this year, that's what they're going to do. They're going to kind of write their own books in 6th grade to introduce them to how teaching can be a form of activism to uplift your community or families. And then for my 7th and 8th graders, we're actually going to do TED Talks this year. So they're going to do a TED Talk. They'll turn that in. I'm going to do a TED Talk this year with them and allow them to post that onto the TED Talk site. And then later they get to use that as a form of part of their resume. So this year I'm going to really step into this teacher academy and really kind of see if we can get some more of our students to come back and help serve the communities that they're from.
Wow. Thank you so much, Mr. Bey. I mean, the future looks great, and I hope you stay in the profession for a long time because there's so much that we can learn from you, even as a healthcare provider as well. So I'm so thankful for you to come on TOVA Health TV today. I want to know how if there's a way for those in our community that want to get in touch with you. Maybe they want to learn a little bit about Kemetic Yoga or being a trauma-informed educator or some of the other initiatives you're involved in. How can they get in touch with you?
Yes. All right. So at the side there, that is my school phone number there. I can be reached there. Also, that is my school email. Reach out to me, drop me an email, and I'll get back to you. Also, you can connect with me on LinkedIn, YouTube. If you happen to go on YouTube and you type in DJ Mr.Bey, you'll see some of the work that I do with the students. I run the Black History Month celebration and Latino celebration at my school, along with my great teachers. Run the planetarium there, and I make it a point to bring the public in, and maybe we can set up some type of visit for maybe your students or groups. Also, you can look me up. I was on Channel 6 News a couple of years ago and Good Morning Wilmington, and you can see some of the work that I've done there. Did a lot of coaching, so kind of coach softball, field hockey, and wrestling. Because I figured a lot of students, there's a certain amount of hours that students spend at school, or that time is spent doing idle things. So the more that you can put a positive adult in front of them and allow them to be able to have that staff member or adult that they can ask questions or just model is always a way to keep them out of the mix, especially now. So those are some of the places that you can reach out to me on. Be glad to collaborate or just share some resources.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, Arthur. We're out of time, and it's been great, and I've learned so much. So I want to thank you as well, Mr. Bey. I want to thank you for coming on TOVA Health TV, TOVA Tuesday. I want to share with our audience that they can like us on Facebook as well as Instagram at tovacommunityhealth.org. And also they can donate to our Cash App at $TOVA Health, because it takes a lot of resources to put this together. But we hope that you're getting valuable information that can really help empower you to live your best life. Again, if you want to make a donation, you go to our Cash App. You can also go to PayPal at contact@tovacommunityhealth.org. Make sure you like us on TOVA Health TV and subscribe to us on our newsletter, as well as like us on Facebook and Instagram. Thank you so much, Mr. Bey, for coming on our show today, and hope we'll be back again to talk with some more great leaders, really those doing great work in our community. Thank you so much for joining us today.